Hello again everyone, welcome back. I'm James Sale. I'm reading the English Cantos, Volume 1, HellWard. On day 1 we looked at the hell of my being in hospital with cancer. On day 2 we escaped from that ward and into another ward where we encountered, sadly, my mother. And then yesterday in Canto 3 we came across the tragic situation of a pupil that I taught who'd taken the wrong road, and I had just escaped from that, and now I'm entering Canto 4. And if ever you have had a really bad boss at any time in your life, this canto is for you, because it's subtitled Boss. And how I ran in terror from those cries, and in my heart of hearts the sense I'd failed, and everything was breathless, full of lies, including my own life, until I stalled, collapsing, kneecaps cracking on the floor, lungs bursting, and all my balance derailed. Only my guide's firm hand held me back, sure. He waited as I wailed and tried to grasp what had happened. Why? A life in a sewer? Why had I, his teacher, not done my task, which is to teach and introduce the good, the true, the beautiful? If I'd been asked back then how I'd done in all rectitude, I'd say I did well. But this? How far wrong can human beings go? He in manhood, me in thinking my example had been strong. At last, my sobs subsiding, Dante said, "Do not blame yourself. We all once were young. But youth's no protection against the bad." I thought of England. How far fallen now. Its education, the world it once led, and in its place, A+ stars, first-class shows, diplomas, tests, exams, all up for cash. Vocation's gone, career's the way to go. Head teacher in just 5 years, make a splash. Know nothing, but lead the blind anyway. Let learning stay rummaging in the trash. So many skills equip us for today, but knowledge and its greater counterpart, wisdom, where was that? Work? Yes, but play. The mind a slave to idols without heart. Kids sold a mess of pottage, futureless. No music, drama, poetry, no art. Within myself I felt a great weight press, constrain me, and a surging of despair for all the lost souls, all the emptiness. My guide felt so and said, "We must leave here. Under heaven keep in mind what is true. One gift, the one who made all, can't forswear. Who, making the weave of being, can't undo. I mean, part of his divine nature is freedom of the will. We must share it too. Love, then, created hell, allowed this mess. No order can reverse, for they refuse it, preferring pain to another bliss. Yes, love made the gate here, framed the door we choose. Love strong enough to fuel its own resistance. Love, and here, as if his ghost had lost its muse, Dante, contemplating one's existence, was overwhelmed even in spirit, as if ichor once more was subject to chance. I felt him shaking, a tremor that passed. Then sober as water from spring, he said, "To know the unbelievable is to know." But again His voice was quavering. All those who tread this path still do his will, strive as they might to make some other thing. He would, perhaps, be contemplating skill, but some power woke him. He said, "We must go. There's one with whom we cannot force a deal." If contemplation had a moment slowed him then, now, like some match that's newly lit, he flared up, urging me to the pitched road. "Where to?" I said. "You know, where there's less light." I followed in his steps, but lagged behind. The shock of Kip had bruised with such a weight I had to carry, process in my mind. But darker yet the road ahead appeared, and all the while I felt our path declined. Its gradient shifting, ever down, steered us where unhallowed tiles absorbed the sound of footfalls landing with dulled, crude thuds. Weird. Some echo, evil in intent to wound by driving mad through its hypnotic beat, the careless soul enraptured by its round surfaced, confident it too could create meaning from mimicking forward movement, not be its empty self, lifeless and flat. So flat, there never could be improvement. Hearing, dismayed body and sickened soul, was everything towards emptiness bent. How doubt consumed me then, all being foul. Where was goodness and what my heart longed for? Instead, my thoughts kept echoing, "Is this all?" But reading my thoughts, Dante turned, knew more. If Adam had stayed true, in the garden stayed, and we too without fault observing law would happy gardeners be, his offspring made to walk with angels in eternal sun, there would be no darkness, no darker shade as this sick ward to which we stagger on. None. Stopping, both his motion and his words, he smiled at me. But look at what is done. He waved, and I, as one who hadn't heard only groans, saw filth and smelt the blood of Adam's legacy, which we all shared. So Dante perplexed, "Don't you see the good?" How could I? This road to ruin's deep depths, aware of being's unbearable load, and how at every stage each human wept, what good was there to see? And now a twist ahead I saw, where empty beds were kept awaiting restless souls who'd never rest. And strange to note as well, not uniform. Some large and bare and iron, others nests small and comfortable. No one size the norm. I quite forgot what good I was to see, intrigued instead, sure there'd be no harm, as I sought to speed up, be instantly there. And as I sped ahead through the door, a voice, acid and aside, greeted me. I turned to see him glowering at the floor, or rather, as my focus grew acute, he stared, bewitched, in bed, at shoes he wore. So polished, shiny black. Only a suit was lacking, else the sense of his importance would be visible not just on his feet. "Brian," I blurted out. He returned no glance. His shoes held his gaze. I could not see why. He spoke robotically, as one in trance, as one using words whose words are empty. "Lie down, this bed here." Without looking up, his arm gestured, casual, to one nearby, the smallest of them all, that scarce would fit my size. I hesitated. After all, why lie down now, when guests might better sit? His order too, "Lie," invoking control, made me uneasy, as did his fixed gaze on shoes. What was it mesmerizing his soul? I noticed then ill aspects bound to phase that hadn't first appeared to consciousness. Each bed had, despite attempts to erase debris, slight remnants of surgical mess adhering, sticky plasters, blood clots, skin, the horrors of humans undone, undressed, minute traces maybe, but women, men had been here before who had not got well. I stopped my forward motion. Brian, when did you get here? How long under this spell? I waited. Behind me I sensed my guide arrive, emboldened. Brian, I said, tell. Like some vicious swell of water, riptide carried across his whole face in deep rage, as if I'd said something undignified, offending him, like my presence upstaged his own. With such an attitude he turned, determined to put me back in the cage he once had held me in when his star burned across the educational wastelands of Christchurch and Hong Kong, with nothing learned by nobody. Headmaster of the bland, the high-achieving parent's friend and aid, all knowledge, like examinations, canned, and I his deputy. I shivered, afraid, remembered what I tried to do back then, how Brian took credit for all I'd made. But suddenly, a whisper, keeping in his real intentions, hoarse, and his breath stank, but nevertheless sounding like a friend. James, he began, the school is at the brink. We need your expertise to reach new levels. Together, what could we not achieve? Think. Somehow his words, who can resist the devil, had their effect. I found myself wavering. Why not accept? Lie down now and be civil. Play his game, not see his trap there, just hovering. How weary now all seemed. I ached for rest, a bed, duvet perhaps, or some covering. I made to move towards, thought it best, the shortened board, when suddenly Dante spoke decisively. Stop! You are not his guest. Remember how it felt before, his yoke? So now consider what Procrustes did. How many bodies, souls his tortures broke. You were not made to fit this demon's bed, but like great Theseus must break the breaker before you leave. And it was like some lid removed, his words revealing in the beaker the foul putrescence of that whole career. Now too I saw a change in Brian's features. Mr. Reasonable, no longer here. Instead, he croaked with fiery venom, I'm in charge. Spit curled up his lip, lined his leer. But the effort all too much. He resumed abruptly, staring back at his bright shoes. As he did so, I saw at last his crime. There, in the glass, his own perfect view. Himself, the peak and peacock of invention, in love with himself, imagining his dues in a perpetual cycle of willed intention. I barely could contain my rage, the sight, evoking his erstwhile strictures and unction, all those subtle distinctions, for him height, his suit and manner, impeccable cant, babble, his own sense, his own words had weight, of governing body's supreme hierophant, but now reflected in his own shoe black only, the faintness of his own drab cult. I broke. In one motion made to attack, he flinched. Even his shoes could not compel attention as I raised my arm to whack his head. A sound, uttered like some congealed squeal of "No, James," issued from his throat, and all his hidden fears surfaced, revealed. The self-confidence and nauseous gloat gone. Now the little boy without his clothes lay there, utter nobody of no note. My hands struck all I had come to loathe, and as I did, two things jarred me. Not him. His head, not hard, but rather soft and smooth, so that my blow slipped through his skull, as skin and bone were absent, though he seemed to hurt. But more, my anger too had turned to sin. I stood shell-shocked, hands stuck in his vile dirt, the sick imaginings of Brian's brain, now with all its force seeking to subvert my own resolve to be myself again, not some drone in his colony of schools. But here my mentor saw my danger, pain. Your rushed anger has tripped you like a fool. Stop struggling with your hand and instead think. What teacher was it, principled and tall, who led you to waters where you could drink? Learning. I felt hot poison up my arm as Brian's malice surged to do its thing. J.E. Williams, he who did no harm. He'd helped, gave me a chance, gave confidence. Against all humbug he'd stood, kind yet firm, and with him you knew, just knew, no pretence. His image then, from so long, long ago, formed in my mind, and as it did, so ice flowed torrential, an avalanche of snow, to meet the poisonous heat and quench it quite. My hand snapped free, and Brian slumped low, while Dante caught my body's ricochet as stumbling back,